Hi there, Bree Cunningham here with the Dr. Stefano Bini, who is the person that is the mastermind behind this event. And as we wrap up this day, I know that me personally, I just learned so much. I still have energy, even though the conference started so early and we just flew in. This was an epic conference. The talent that you had recruited, the speakers, the level of their expertise was inspiring, and I just have so much I want to talk with you about. First things first, what was your vision for this conference? How did you, what gave you the energy and the vision to make this come to life?
Well, I'll tell you, it really came from an interest of mine to get more engaged with the digital health revolution, if you will. I'd done some startup work in the late 90s and then gotten back into healthcare and orthopedics and management in that world. But last 5 years or so, I've been getting more and more engaged with the digital health community and learning about all the amazing things they're doing at the level of whether digital technology, sensors, motors, whatever, you name it. It's amazing to me. And yet, at the same time, I might fly from one of those conferences to a clinical health conference, like the American Academy meeting, and I just didn't see the two worlds intersect. So I see it as a kind of a Venn diagram. Is it possible to bring these two worlds together and give them a format where we could have a conversation? And then the other question was always, okay, who's going to be the audience for that event? Do you do a massive 5,000 people, inspirational event with all the docs? Is it more an educational event, or is it more an attempt to drive actually change? I hate to use that word, but catalyze is really what always comes to mind, because a catalyst in a chemical reaction is that element that makes the whole thing happen, right? It makes the reaction occur. The catalyst makes it go faster, and so I thought, well, why don't we bring those two worlds together? So I did a fair amount of asking. So I went to a lot of the manufacturers. So how would you like that to happen? I went to the startups and said, what would you like it to look like? And if you were to come, what would draw you there? And that's that sort of needs assessment period. It took me a few months. What came out is, look, we want to be in a relatively small setting, so where there's a lot of conversation and a lot of exposure, and we want the people in the room to be curated and be folks that have something to say and have an opportunity to make a difference, are leaders and change. So that was sort of the structure, and that we would be a relatively small event, that it would be people that we know represent the entire ecosystem of the orthopedic world, and that don't otherwise have an opportunity to speak to each other, whether it's the tech companies or the healthcare systems or the insurers or the manufacturers, and bring them together. And then the idea was, like, let's get down to practicality. Let's not talk about future visions. There are some really exceptional conferences like Exponential Medicine. They can give you what's the vision, etc. Let's make it practical. Let's get down to problems that we can solve, and let's go deep. Let's go from high level, the level setting sections where we talked about the big picture, what are our problems, have the medical people do that, have the tech people tell us, okay, well, these are the technological solutions we have available for you to solve your problems. Let's then get down into sort of case studies, business school concept. Okay, don't tell me in it for an hour about how wonderful your software is, or the details of the app. To tell us about how you implement it. Tell us about what happened when you deployed it and what you learned from it. And you did a fantastic session that actually was in, and I really enjoyed listening to it. And so that if you've come to this event and you're looking at one of those two areas, you've heard about the technology, you've heard about the software, you've heard about the issues that you had to deal with, others have had to deal with to manage it. So when you go back to your institution, you say, look, these are the things we have to do to make this work. And then we couched all that with some framing around change management techniques, and also about the political infrastructure that's happening now, the changes that are happening in the healthcare environment that may drive the way we think about healthcare. So that should create a whole experience, a holistic experience for the attendee, that we didn't cover all of digital health, we didn't cover all of orthopedics. We just covered two areas, the ability to use big data to drive decision making in the context of risk management. So getting down to something practical, and something that's actually things that we deal with every day. And then we looked at the use of telehealth tools to bring care to patients outside the hospital system. These are things we can deal with And one day can't cover too much, but also made it very practical and very real.
What would you say, as a practicing orthopedic surgeon, is your dream technology, the thing that you're the most excited to see become part of your day-to-day practice?
Well, I did mention it. It's like, it's an idea. Maybe I should do this myself, but who knows if I got time. But we need to integrate these apps. And when I say integrate, I mean they should talk to each other. They should be on a phone. I should be able to prescribe a series of apps specific for a specific patient. It could be a weight loss app, or maybe a depression app, along with their prehabilitation app or their post-injury app. And then there may be something in there, and it's a sequence of apps that I put together for that patient, like as a ERX, as the capture folks like to talk about it. It's this idea that I give a digital prescription and includes apps, and they talk to each other. So data collected in one area will flow to the other, and I like for that to come to me in a single portal. And it's not the EMR. Right? I think the EMR. The problem is that if we wait for the EMRs to open up to the point we can access them the way we want to access them and the information through them, it's going to be a long time. So let's stay above the EMR. I think we can access data in two areas. Three, it's going to be areas. Phone's not going away. The EMR is not going to go away. And I think a third data point entry is reasonable.
So one of my favorite quotes that I heard today was that people always overestimate 2-year innovation and they underestimate 10-year innovation.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating about what you had just said is that I do believe that in 10 years that platform is going to exist, right?
Yeah.
Where it's something that's not the EHR, and that is something that's innovative, that's more customizable, and that's a solution that you will be using, just like you described. Do you think that is reasonable? Do you think that will happen in 2 years? I mean, you're in the Bay Area, right?
No, I think we'll have. I think that let's just say I started working on this tomorrow, and I raised a few $100,000 to get some software engineers around it. It actually is not a particularly complicated thing to do. There are some, for example, we could work with Redox to create an API, or Validic, for example, another company that's working on providing an API network, a network API system. The technology is certainly available. It's a desire to do it, and that could definitely be available in 2 years. The question is, will it then be adopted widely enough to make a difference in 2 years? And that probably takes longer. So the question of whether or not technology surfaces before it's fully adapted, that's why I think you see this delay. You actually see them happening pretty quickly. It's the adoption that takes longer, to a point you actually notice it. So when they say we underestimate what happens in 2 years, no, I don't think. I disagree with that quote, because it makes you. It's true for adoption. It's not true for innovation. Innovation does happen faster than you think, and at 2 years, a lot of innovation does happen. It's because the other part of it is, frankly, for all I know, there's some team working on this right now, and it's not out yet.
Right. I think that the reference was more towards policy making. I think it was CMS that had said that, right?
No, because that quote, Charlene Fazera did bring it up, but it's not, and she was the second to bring it up. I don't know who brought it first. But nonetheless, it's an oft-quoted. I can't remember who the original quoter was, but it's common to say that, and there's a lot of truth to from the adoption side. Is the surfacing, when the ideas start to surface, that it takes a little longer. And I think in the change management section, we had Jessica Parisi making many interesting points, but one of the most interesting ones was like, what's a great leader? It was the one that's trying out the new technology themselves. They did buy the smartwatch. They did try the iPhone. They did download Pokemon Go to see what's happening, even though they can't see a reason to do it for the purpose of their current work.
They're curious.
Business. They're curious, and maybe they come up with a use of that tool that had up to that point not been considered.
So I have one final question for you.
Yeah, shoot.
So this conference was so amazing. I have no doubt that next year it's going to be even more amazing and have a great turnout as well. So the first conference is DOCSF 17, right? Is the first one. What is the theme going to be next year? You know how AAOS always has a AAOS, and then they have a statement. Can you predict, or what would you hypothesize would be the 2018 DOCSF theme?
Yeah, I think that when I chose the two themes of big data analytics and telehealth, it's because I thought that of the ones that I'd listed in my head, those are the ones that are most clearly applicable today. And a year is a long time, back to this quote of yours, 2 and 10. And I believe that robotics in my world is going to be something we should focus on next year. So I think robotics, possibly 3D printing, but I think AI, artificial intelligence, and
we heard some of that today.
Yep, exactly. But that was one company out of 7 that was really focusing on using real AI algorithms. And I think next year we're going to start seeing even more companies in that field creating even more impressive results. And and maybe next year, unfortunately, Curie couldn't come talk about Watson's interface. Maybe he can come next year, because I think that understanding where that's going to go and what implication it has for us. However, that said, the keynotes I reserve for talks that may not be immediately applicable, but sort of a frame setting, and because the major focus points have to get down to the practical application, whatever topics we choose are going to be ones that have been deployed and have some real data behind them. Like you can show real data behind code, and that's really important. I don't want to show what, as some people refer to as vaporware. Sounds great, show us the data. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you must be exhausted. This was an amazing kickoff to this conference. I'm so excited to see where this goes in the future. And on behalf of all the attendees, I can say that we're very grateful for you putting this together. This was a very unique format, a very unique audience, and very relevant subject matter. And Dr. Bini, we're so grateful.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great
That's
work.
very good. Thank
and
you.
We are signing off.
That's it. Come back next year too.